we're going to do a quick review of some of the data. If any of you were at the Elgin High School session in October, I will be sharing some of the same data on our elementary schools because I think it's important that everybody's starting with that same sort of baseline set of data. And then I'll introduce Carrie Matlock, who is an architectural services partner who the district is working with, and she and her firm DLA Architects has visited many of our oldest elementary schools this fall, and so we've got some findings for kind of what we've seen from doing probably a dozen or so visits. You know, first we'll be completing an audit of all of our elementary schools and really starting with the oldest elementary schools. So really we focused on the schools that were built prior to, say, 1980, and those are the schools that we've spent most of the time in so far this fall. So we will share with you some of those findings, and that's going to help us get to a point where we've got recommendations for a number of our buildings, and also to determine how many elementary schools will be needed. And as I mentioned, it will be fewer than what we operate today. You don't really need to see the numbers. All you see is that it's going down and to the right, and this is our enrollment at our elementary level, okay? So the difference here, it's kind of following the same trend that we've been describing for the district overall enrollment until you get to that hash line there, and then you see it sort of step function drop down quite a bit. And that's when the sixth graders move from middle school to elementary school. So then there's a big drop in our elementary because all of a sudden you're pulling one entire grade level out. So that's 1/7 of our elementary student count that all of a sudden is going to be lifted from the elementary schools to the middle schools. The numbers, the actual school names aren't important as much as just to let you know this is a heat map of how well we're using the capacity in our elementary buildings. And just know that blue means they're running way below capacity, like they're half full or 2/3 full. If they're red, that means they're basically running right at peak capacity. They're basically 100% capacity. And then we have a handful of them that are in the gray, which means they're at about 80%. That's where we'd really want schools ideally. We don't want every classroom, packed to the gills with 30 students and the schools, the lunchrooms, the libraries almost overcrowded. So some of these that are like the deeper red, those are probably ones that when we address the boundaries, we may need to do some adjustments to bring the enrollment down a couple places. But I think the important takeaway on this is that you see we just have waves of blue and even the dark blue, which means there's pockets of our district where all the elementary schools are running literally like half full, 60% full. And I've just told you how now the enrollment is declining. So it feels counterintuitive that we're going to need to be investing in building schools when our enrollment is going down. And in a sense it is. But on the other hand, we have schools that have very real needs, and our kids deserve access to the safe, modern learning environments as much as kids anywhere else, right? It's not their fault that the enrollments are declining. It lists several things here that we feel like all kids in all schools should have access to. And I'm not going to read you the slide, but one of the points at the bottom that's in the bold green font is that it says schools should be replaced when they've reached a point where they're more expensive to repair or to renovate than they are to replace. And we asked a question very similar to this when we did the survey of community members prior to the referendum. And we said, does it make sense to replace a school when it becomes more costly to do repairs or renovations and basically keep the school operating than to replace it? And we had 82% of the people who said that makes good financial sense. So these were the schools that were originally identified during Unite U-46 to either be renovated or to be rebuilt or to be retired. So I'm about ready to turn over to Carrie here. Carrie Matlock from DLA Architects and her team have visited a number of our schools. I think we've been to like 15, 16 schools this fall at the elementary level. And what we have tonight is a summary of some of the findings.
We looked at the building envelope. And some of the pictures that are shown here, there's some masonry issues that need to be taken care of. There is a metal fascia that is rusted. This is a nice little video that talks about the building flow inside. So it shows students moving about their day and cutting through one of the classrooms to get to their classroom. You can see in the picture on the right here that there's some storage in the hallways. That didn't look like it was just there for the week. It looks like it's been there a while, and that obviously it's a space need that's not being addressed. This picture shows a staircase that goes up to a classroom. That is the only way to get to that classroom. This is certainly an obstacle and is not an accessible area for someone. Here you can see walls that don't go up to ceilings and curtains that are in place of walls. Looked at the size and shape of classrooms. Some of them were very unique in shape. It also made it very difficult for teachers to lay out a teaching wall space or to gather different groups of students for different types of activities. And then once you get into the building, how close is the relationship of the main office to the front of the building? Do you have to walk across a corridor? Do you have to go up a staircase? Or is it adjacent to it? Is it right next to it?
We're going to describe a hypothetical school. So this is not any single U-46 school. You might see some things that look familiar, and you might say, I bet that's that school they're talking about. Trust me, it's not a single U-46 school, but it's kind of like a composite of decisions that we're facing in many of our buildings, okay?
So we have Elementary School A, built in 1906, very small lot size, about 2.5 acres. We have a capacity for 400 students, but its projected enrollment for 27 school year is 250. The challenge is because it's 100 plus years old, it's the highest annual building operating cost in the district. It's declining enrollment, and there's a roof that needs to be replaced. That's just going to be under $1 million. And then there's some structural issues as well, and that's about $250,000 to fix. Several of the classrooms are below grade level, and they don't have natural light. There's ADA routes that do not exist, and they cannot be created because of the way the building is laid out. And there are no routes for those in wheelchairs. Front entrances do not have a secured entry. So there's limited green space, and the green space that does exist has some flooding issues during heavy rains. And the parking and parent drop-off is a little bit of an issue because it occurs on the neighborhood streets. There is no parking on site because of that small site that exists. So option one is to renovate. So we're going to save the building. We will renovate and or add on to the existing building. Students will not need to be relocated to another building. Option two is to rebuild on the current site. So what we'll do, we will demolish the existing building and build anew on the existing site. Option three is retire and rebuild on a new site. So we would identify a more suitable site that was located at a mile or at least within the boundaries of the existing facility, and we would retire the existing building once the new school is ready. Option four is to retire the school and relocate students. So we would update and modernize those two close buildings, School B and School C, to accommodate more students and programs along with the best practice in education. And we would retire Elementary School A, relocate Elementary School A students to updated Elementary School B and or C, and this would ensure that all students would have an improved learning environment. These are those four options kind of in a summary altogether, so you can see those cost differences.